Hey there, spiritualpreneurs. Welcome to our podcast where we talk about all things mental health and spirituality.
That's right. We're your hosts, Biani and Sequoia, and we're here to provide you with the tools, tips, and insights to help you navigate your spiritual journey and maintain your mental wellness.
As millennials, we understand the unique challenges that come with balancing our spiritual practices with our everyday lives. From managing our careers to building relationships, it can be tough to find the time and energy to prioritize our mental and spiritual health.
But that's where we come in. Each episode, we'll be sharing our personal experiences, interviewing experts in the field, and exploring different spiritual practices to support you and ourselves on this journey of unlearning from mental health programs, incorporating spirituality, and embodying our identities as spiritualpreneurs.
So, whether you're a seasoned spiritualpreneur or just starting out on your journey, this podcast is for you. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to elevate your mental health and spiritual well being.
Let's get started.
All right. Thank you all so much for being here. And unlearning must be a part of our work as spiritual practitioners and therapists. It is time for us to put aside the lessons from our programs that do not help and do not serve the communities we hold space for. In this episode, Spiritual Practitioner's Answer is unlearning the key to unlocking your professional potential. We share our reflections and musings of our unlearning practices and experiences as spiritual social workers. Whether you're a seasoned practitioner or just starting out, again, this episode is a must listen for anyone looking to deepen their spiritual practice and make a positive impact in their community. Tune in now to discover how unlearning has helped us to unlock our potential. And we have a special guest today, spiritual practitioner, therapist, and herbalist, Nat.
Welcome, y'all. Reclaiming Soul Work is a heart centered podcast by two queer Black femme healers and spiritual social workers and entrepreneurs who explore the intersection of magic, spirituality, mental health, and everything in between. My name is Biani. I use she, they pronouns. I am I'm one who wears many hats, but I am a mom, a private practice therapist, spiritual social worker, doula, energy practitioner, and tarot reader. And I want to acknowledge the land that I live and work and play on, Lenape-Hoking, also known as Philadelphia. And yeah, I would say, because of the way the astrological climate has been, I do want to share my big threes again because it's been intense for me. So I'm a Virgo sun, Cancer rising, Aries moon, and just really taking in all this astrological intensity. And my friend Sequoia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, yes, yes. Hello, everyone. It's so good to be here with you all this week. Um, as we mentioned, very excited about this topic today. My name is Sequoia. I use she and her pronouns. And I live and work in Anchorage, Alaska on Dena'ina land. I mentioned this a few times as well. I go back and forth between here and Chicago, caregiving for my mom. And so, yeah, those are the two areas that I'm predominantly running around on. Let's see, what else can I say? Um, I want to also say my big three this week. I'm Aquarius sun, Libra rising, and an Aries moon. And, that is something that Biani and I share our moon signs. And I just want to affirm that, yes, it's been bananas. I don't know what else to say. It's been bananas. But as always, we're gonna get through the eclipses and all the other things that are going on. So I think, yeah, I think we can just hop right into things because again, I'm really excited. For those that are watching us here on YouTube, I have my puppy in the background. Her name is Winnie. Winnie Mandela, like Winnie Mandela, not Pooh. And yeah, I think that's all the introducing I'll do.
I love the distinction. Make that clear.
Let them know.
Yes. And I love how cute she looks in the back. So I'm glad you acknowledged because I was about to be like, you're forgetting another podcast host, our baby. All right, y'all. um, I think it's time for us to introduce our guest who we are so excited about. Bring them in the
Okay,
circle.
here we go. Here we go.
Hey,
Yay. Hey, we did it. Hey, Nat.
hello. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Yay. Well, let me officially introduce you. Give
Hey.
you your flowers right now, friend. Nat Strafaci is a licensed clinical social worker, therapist, clinical supervisor, spiritual herbalist, and tarot reader, living and working in New York and California on Lenape and Yokuts land. They are a graduate of Columbia University School of Social Work and Sacred Vibes Apothecary Spiritual Herbalism Apprenticeship. Their private practice centers the healing of queer and trans people of color at the intersection of spirituality and mental health. Informed by 15 years of school and community based work around trauma, violence, and healing, Nat is passionate about creating more spaces for mental health care and spirituality to exist together. Welcome, Nat.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for having
being
me.
here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So amazing. So we are just really excited to have you on for a number of different reasons. But also, this series, Spiritual Practitioners Answer, um, we are just very excited to bring on, and I think we talked about this, kind of when we were together initially. Really excited to talk to other practitioners about this particular topic related to unlearning.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think that we are just gonna hop right in. Nat, if you would please, we, did a very short introduction, but would you like to tell us anything more? You can please share any of your big three if you want. You don't have to do that. Just whatever you like to connect on.
Yes, I'm so excited to share my big three. um, I mean, I'm a Leo sun, so I'll be talking about that in my conversation around unlearning. Cancer rising, Virgo moon. Yeah, I'm tired, the eclipse, retrograde. I was supposed to have sessions last week and Optimum, our internet service here, like completely cut out in my whole neighborhood. Luckily, I just I work with a lot of amazing aligned folks and they understood. They were like, "Oh my gosh, we can reschedule." Like we're in retrograde season, right? And I'm like, "Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for your flexibility. I'll see you next week." So I'm feeling it. But yeah, that intro was sufficient. Thank you for reading it.
But I'm
Okay.
kind of I'm looking at your big three and I'm like, okay, we're both Cancer risings.
Mm,
So that's just
Hmm.
interesting. But
Hmm.
also something you said that I hope our listeners and viewers are tuning in, like what it means to like be of service to aligned clients that you felt like they just got it, right? And there's something about that that I just wanted to emphasize, like how lovely. And also, yeah, like what it means for us to do this work in the climate that we're in, not just astrologically, but like just in the world. And sometimes things happen, like the internet shuts down and reminds us we need to slow the F down. you know, it's
exactly.
just so, yeah. Anyhow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Nat. And I think what Biani is pointing out is really important as we kind of transition a little bit into just sharing a little bit more about what exactly you do. So you mentioned clients. I know we read off like that you're an herbalist and a therapist and things like that. But can you just give us a little bit more of the tea? Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, okay. So day to day, well, I have a private practice where I see clients for therapy. Um, and additionally, I also am a spiritual herbalist. So that looks a lot of different ways. Right now, it looks like I have a line of plant medicine that I will make available at different community events. I used to do herbal consultations, but I don't have the capacity at the moment. That might change one day. And sometimes I'll see clients for tarot readings. So every week is a little different, but I'll incorporate all all of those modalities into my therapeutic practice occasionally, depending on who I'm working with and what they're kind of coming to me to look at and unpack and explore. Um, I'm also like a student of mediumship. And so I say that not because that's like a service that I offer, but I say that because I want it to be more normalized that, like, yeah, some therapists and social workers are also psychic mediums. So that's me.
I I appreciate that. Thank you so much for, just letting us know a little bit more about what you do, how you support the different ways. Um, Definitely many of the things that you provide align. I definitely have more questions about this plant medicine line that you have going on. So I have some more questions about that because
Mhm.
I think that is so cool.
Mhm.
So yeah, Biani, did you have anything before we kind of move on to our next piece or
Well, I want to say something around how I love that your offerings are multi-layered. Like they all weave in and intersect. And I think you really do represent um, like what our listeners and viewers are looking for around like what is a spiritual practitioner, a spiritual therapist? Like what does that look like? And something Sequoia and I always talk about is like a spiritual practitioner, therapist, entrepreneur is super multidimensional, totally, intersectional and like does a lot of things, right? But we're able to like weave it in. And I really appreciate just hearing your like the work you do, because like for Sequoia and I, we also like read tarot and we also weave in, like we also have like modalities that we weave into the work. And
Mhm.
I'm glad to be normalizing that, right? I'm glad that you're here, that there are people like us normalizing, like, yeah, I'm also a medium. I also do plant medicine, right? Like that, all of that stuff is healing work. It
Mhm.
is therapy, it is therapeutic.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see it as like it's all interconnected, right? Just like part of our unlearning is our mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health. They're not separate. We can't compartmentalize those things. And I look at the modalities that we practice in the same way, right? It's all connection to spirit or ancestors or your higher self, whatever you call it. And it's just different containers to hold that. So for some folks, it's psychotherapy. For some folks, it's mediumship. For some folks, it's a variety. It's just the container that changes.
I love that. I love that explanation. And that absolutely resonates. A few podcasts back, Biani and I share, kind of our what inspired you to get into this work story,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we definitely let me speak for myself. I just love to hear how folks got into like incorporating spirituality more into their therapeutic work and then also like just being open about it, because I know that there are barriers around that and stigma and so on and so forth, right? So I would love to hear more about what inspired you to get into this work. Did you always know that this is the area that you were going to work in related to providing like therapy, or did you just kind of, your walk led you there?
Yeah, no, definitely the latter. My walk led me there. I was like listening to the bio that was being read that like center is the healing of queer and trans people on a spiritual journey. And it's like, no, I'm in this work because I'm a queer and trans person on a spiritual journey, like that's why I'm here. I have I've had so spirituality has always been a part of my life. I was raised in a very religious, insular, born again Christian community. And I was always like a weirdo kid, very much like prayed and like talked to God, that I called at the time, like all day, super anxious, like very intuitive. And that like worked for a while for me, but as I got older, all this stuff happens where like I had to be my own authentic self, and I didn't find a space for me to do that any longer. So my journey kind of then was like being an angry young person and kind of rejecting everything having to do with spirituality, and then also being unsatisfied, right? So I think that coming into social work and therapy practice, at least with grad school, I was kind of like on my healing journey of figuring out like how do I make peace with both of those parts. And I'm still on that journey, like it's still, I still have days where I'm like, can I like be out here saying this? Like I have those days where that voice is louder than other days. Um, but I can't not, I'm just so tired of having to like put myself into pieces. Like I did that my whole life, as so many of us have had to do, that I'm like, I'm just tired. I don't have it in me anymore. Like I have to be me, and part of that is is choosing to no longer hide.
That resonates so much.
Mhm.
Um, I definitely feel like there was a clear shift for me, just related to how I wanted to show up in providing services, in my practice. And when I was able to work on my own, work for myself, I think that was kind of the push to be like, it's okay, you're in a safe, kind of place because this is the one that you created for yourself, and so I feel like that um just kind of allow me to peel back some of the layers. And so when we think about, this idea of safety, unlearning, can I be out here saying this kind of stuff? You know, I feel like that is one of the also just catalyst for why Biani and I wanted to have more folks come on and talk to us about these things, especially during this time of the year. We're approaching graduation time, and, for new grads to get out there in the field. Um, I know I had these questions. And so, yeah, we again just appreciate you being here and just having this kind of conversation with us. Biani, I just wanted to ask, yeah, do you want to say anything before we like maybe
Yeah.
transition or
Yeah, we can. I guess I want to hold. I love that you ask yourself this question: can I be out here, right? And that for you, it's like I have to be, right? Like making peace with that. That I have to be my full self, and really relating to being an anxious kid. When you were sharing your story, I remember like I grew up. I'm Catholic, and I loved saying the Hail Mary. Like I love the ritual of the Rosary, and wanting her to like help me with my anxiety, like the sorrow that I had. Um, but I think it also like connects to us being like always spiritual and intuitive. So I hope that folks who are tuning in can relate to that too. Like our early stories, right? Like our connection to spirituality didn't just start when we graduated from our programs. Like it's always been there. And so yeah, I appreciate you for sharing that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah, I agree with that too. I think that there is a very interesting common thread. I want to say that maybe the last panelist said the same thing too, that there was some connection to a religious background, growing up. I think there's something more to unpack there for spiritual therapists, just thinking about this unlearning piece. And that's not to say that folks haven't thought about that, right? But in the sense of that commonality, maybe,
Absolutely.
hmm
Yeah, because I think I wrote that part of my story off for a long time. On my healing journey when I was a lot younger, I was like, there's only pain there or trauma. But I'm at a place now where I'm able to see the connections, and I'm able to see, no, like there were tools and rituals in place that I learned that I hold on to, and I'm so glad I did. And I think that's true for a lot of people.
So true.
yeah, I completely agree. I know that we have more that we could talk about, related to this. And again, I would love to do that, because that there was definitely a foundation built there just around like seeing the value in community or seeing the value in ritual or practices or study, um right. And for me it was Southern Baptist,
Mhm.
um and I have, I don't practice, anymore, but like I was mentioning, there's something there about a love, a need for those things, and how that, has kind of shown up related to some of the other practices, that I do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see it as separate or competing with spirituality, and also
Mhm.
like magic and witchcraft. I feel like I shared this last month at the group Biani, but yeah, my one of my family, my uncle is a pastor, and yeah, so we have different belief systems, but I was talking to him because, there's like spiritual practices that run in our family. And I was like, hey, like Opa, like his father was like said to have like red palms. And I'm like on this own journey of who I am and figuring out these abilities. I'm like, what do you think about that? How do they show up for you? And he's like, I'm not I'm not psychic or anything, but when I do sit with people in the congregation, the Holy Spirit gives me messages. And I said, okay. So I hope we can complicate that narrative a little bit. I think also, we're talking about grad school and unlearning in grad school. There's this idea that, right, um, religion or being super religious is like ignorant, or it's like you're missing a big piece. At least that's the messaging I got in my grad program. It's like you have to be open-minded if you're religious. That's like the default. Well, you need to be open-minded. And then I think like with spirituality, it's like, well, you have to like have common sense if you're going to be a spiritual person. So I feel like those were kind of the two messages I got around those things. And it's just like way more complicated and nuanced. And both of those things deserves a lot more respect. So I forget where I was going with that, but yeah, I don't see them as competing. I see them as a part of the same soup.
I think we need to have like, this is brewing in me a topic, because I also work with queer and trans folks, and a lot of the work of like spiritual reclamation comes from like exploring early childhood, like religious trauma.
Mhm.
And we have to explore the trauma, but we also have to make space for like the parts of those experiences that have shaped spiritual practices right now, right? Like, and you're right. I don't think there's a lot of space being held. And we need to queer that conversation around religion and spirituality. Because I think it's true. It's very like you're either really, like what you said, it's really, that's how it gets presented to us. And so when it feels that way, it makes it hard for spiritual practitioners to feel like it's okay to show up fully as they are, or that it's like not okay to do spiritual work as a therapist, like that. The fact that it's so rigid, the way that we're being taught is so rigid.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree and resonate. And it's just interesting to hear your experience, Nat, because for me it was kind of a little bit of the opposite in the sense of um there was no conversation like spirit, there was the absence of spirituality, like it just wasn't there. And then religion, if we're going to keep it in grad school, it was definitely faith based, and that was okay, like that kind of incorporation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Incorporation, is that implementation? Y'all know what I'm saying, like
We
that.
got you.
That was acceptable, like we could have conversations about faith based all day, but the spirituality piece was absent. So it's really interesting to hear
Yeah.
um that as we talk more about even this unlearning piece, right? Because even that awareness to even pick up on those two things, that's interesting to me too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there was like, so okay, did your grad programs talk, they didn't talk about spirituality? I can't remember, but I don't remember like much of, yeah. And that's interesting that it's like, okay, well, we can talk about different religions of the world, but that's it. I wonder what that is rooted
I
in.
mean, I never heard about witchcraft. I never heard about African traditional religions, voodoo. I never heard about indigenous practices. I honestly just heard about Christian counseling.
Yeah.
That was literally the only, and then, to call it Christian counseling is interesting because Christianity is so broad, right? Like,
Yeah.
what does that look like in practice? Um, but yeah, I feel like we're in it, but I think, yeah, like thinking about one of the challenges of unlearning, um,
Mm-hmm.
like that we faced in our mental health programs. I think, Sequoia, you're really onto something, like paying attention to what was not being said. Like I was very clear about what was being left out. And it was so enraging to me because I thought social work would be more welcoming. Like I came in as a witch being like, great, I can do this work because social work is holistic. They really are talking about it, they're in the community. And it was like, it was no, anytime I used the word sacred, anytime I mentioned like ritual or practices, I got big eyes like, who are you? What are you doing here? Kind of thing. Even from therapists, people who were really beholden to traditional psychotherapy were
Mm-hmm.
sort of like, are you really going to help people? Um, but yeah, it feels, I feel like one of the things I still feel like one of the biggest challenges that I'm paying attention to is like, when I get really panicked about how I show up with clients, like I'm like, was that too much? Oh, I need to check in with them. Maybe I disclosed too much. Maybe, like that, the way the tyranny of our programs like live inside of me, the shoulds, all the like, this is how you show up as a therapist. You're supposed to get your license. These are the ethics. You're never friendly with them. Like all those, the ways that we were taught, like I hope folks who are tuning in can really pay attention to what's being left out, because
Yeah.
what's being left out is the thing that I feel like has been haunting me sometimes. Just to be like, that feels like the challenge for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Go
I
ahead.
mean, I'm thinking even beyond just like, right, this conversation around spiritual, like all those things you just named, Biani, it's like your personality gets left out of the room. Like I remember graduating my program and being like, I am so bored. I do not want to be a social worker if this is what it means to be a social worker, like I am really bored. And that's like the Leo sun in me that I have to thank. That never felt like very comfortable performing professionalism essentially. But I think that it is such a disservice, this idea that like we have to conform or sacrifice, or having an ego is not good. We leave our personality out of it. When the reality is like the world that I'm assuming we're all trying to build and work towards is like everyone is their most authentic self. Our society, our communities have abundant space for everybody to show up as fully as they want to be. So why would we be cutting ourselves into pieces in this healing work for the sake of what? Being professional? Um yeah. Yeah, I just think that especially spiritual social workers and therapists, like I just think we have some of the most amazing stories to tell, and we're everyone is special, but this group is such a special community that it is like a disservice to leave out your personality and some of your stories. You know, it's like our stories are medicine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was, yes, resonated for sure. I wanted to, y'all drop some really good nuggets that I think really aligns with Dr. Truesdale's comment here, just related to personality, conformity, and then this concept of unlearning, right? Because really what we're talking about is decolonizing, right? When we say unlearning. And so this comment about in grad school objectivity and performing Western logic is the religion you have to conform to, right? And so when we think about social work specifically, right, that field, and white supremacy, proximity to whiteness, perpetuating, certain like values and norms. And then we talk about this piece about what's not being said, what is being communicated around certain messages about religion, right? And then we think about this individualism piece, and the personality and being in pieces, right? Like that's capitalism, that's whiteness. Those are attributes that are far from indigenous practices, from many of our cultural groundings and things like that, so mm,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think like just continue. I feel like continuing what you're saying, it's like the biggest piece of unlearning. It's like somehow we're told our own healing work is separate from the work we're putting out into the world. Um, and that is just such a lie, you know? I think I mean, I don't know about your programs, but no one ever recommended like or asked like what healing journey are you on, like are you in therapy, have you ever been to therapy, that conversation just was not happening. I think like there were conversations around like self-care, take care of yourself so you can like be a better social worker, but it was pretty surface level. But yeah, when I'm thinking about the biggest themes and pieces of unlearning in this conversation, it's really that like, no, our healing work is a part of the work we're doing, and we can't separate it. And we need to normalize that. If you are someone who is called to this work and this field to do healing work, go like be on your journey too, right? Um, you can't meet people there if you haven't done that for yourself yet. And yeah, there's also this false sort of or I guess it's like a power imbalance where it's like you're the one with the problem, so you come to see me for therapy and I have the answers. When it's like, no, like I've probably been on a really similar journey maybe a couple of years ago. Like, let's hold space. I have some great questions to ask you, So yeah, I'll stop there.
Yes. I have so many feelings about how I hear, like, especially in these groups that we're in, like these therapist groups where there's a lot of like, you should go to therapy if you're going to be a therapist. You should be in therapy, blip, blip, all the shoulds. And for me, I'm more interested in like your healing journey, like you said. Like, what's your journey like? Like, who's supporting you on your journey? Therapy is one way, right? But maybe it's a energy practitioner. Maybe it's an amazing spiritual herbalist. Maybe it's your tarot reader, which is real, right? Like, I think I think you're right, like around thinking about healing as a collective and that we're healing with our clients and communities we're in community with. And I think the more we unlearn and integrate decolonized spiritual practices, the more we make space for people to see their healing connected to the larger collective. Like, we're
Mm-hmm.
not just doing one-on-one work, which is one of the things I'm always like, I'm not just sitting here with my client. I'm sitting with their ancestors. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting with their ghosts. They're sitting with my ancestors. Like, we're doing spiritual work. If we really commit to this unlearning, this work is ancestral healing. It's intergenerational healing. It is healing from capitalism. It's healing from supremacy culture. Like, if we really are about it, kind of like what Dr. Truesdale was saying, like how we perform Western culture and objectivity and all of that. Like, if we unlearn that, y'all, can you imagine the kind of world we will create just showing up and doing this unlearning with our clients? Like, so when people, oh, you just talk and listen to clients, no, I'm doing deep ancestral and intergenerational healing. Like, if they really are ready for it, that's the work we're doing. But that's not happening until I unlearn my stuff and commit to it as a daily practice. Like, it just can't happen without me doing our unlearning journey. And for Sequoia and I, we've been talking about unlearning from the inception of this podcast because we think it's so important. Like, I know we talk about decolonizing, but for us, it's like, well, what does it look like in practice? And unlearning is the key, like that is the key to be able to really commit to a decolonial practice, a decolonial way of living, of abolitionist work. Like, you can't do that if you're not, Lauryn Hill, how are you going to win if you ain't right within? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like, that can't happen.
Yes.
It really
Yes.
can't.
I think what y'all are talking about right now is definitely like one of the biggest challenges for me with this unlearning piece, just around kind of what you were talking about, Nat, and get like, you kind of dipped your toe a little bit in there about um, the power imbalance. And again, it's this very white perspective about being I'm the expert, as opposed to, again, indigenous cultural practices that are more collective, community, what's happening in your environment. You know what's best for you. Let's figure out, what kind of supports, so on and so forth, right? And so it's the authenticity that is the biggest challenge for me with unlearning. Folks, I feel like therapists, social workers come off again as if, and again, that's that social work program, profession, foundation, right, with Jane Addams and all of them, thinking that they know what's best for somebody's family, thinking that they can push their values onto someone else, that their family structure is what you're supposed to be doing, you know so with that unlearning piece, that is the place that a lot of the times I meet a lot of therapists and social workers, and it's like, no, we got to have some different conversations, um
Mm-hmm.
just related to being in community with our clients, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There's so much emphasis on like go out and be culturally competent in the communities you serve. All these words that don't mean anything. But I see that as like such an avoidance of like you being in relationship to your own community and your own family. Like even the example you just shared, Sequoia, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go tell a family. I know what's best for this family. And it's like, what's your relationship like with your parents and your siblings and your grandparents? And like what work have you done around those relationships? Like what's your ancestral trauma that you're not looking at? Because I feel like if you were deep in that work, you wouldn't have the desire to go and tell other people what to do.
Right. And I think if I often enter into this as seeing this work as really sacred. And so I'm not separate from the clients and the communities I serve.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the unlearning too, where we have to, if we're talking about like true decolonization as a spiritual therapist, I am not separate from you. I'm not separate from Sequoia. I'm not separate from the folks that I work with. We're in a collective. We support each other, right? Like, you know what's best for you. I want to support you. How can I best support you to get there? But it's true. It feels like we have to do a lot of deprogramming.
Yeah.
And part of it is complicated because a lot of what we learn makes us feel good. It makes us go unchecked. It makes us feel really like we're better than the clients and communities we serve. And Sequoia's right. Like, that's literally how, the history of this profession has been about white women feeling like they were better than the people that they serve, and that's a part of our lineage, and I think we need to really be able to like own that and unlearn it, but I know I feel like we can keep going,
We could talk, go on and
y'all.
on.
Look, if y'all watching this, let us know if you want to see a part 2 of us,
Bring
coming back
that
together.
back.
Yeah.
Bring that back.
But I think a lot of the unlearning also comes from us really this idea of like this altruism. Ooh, baby. I mean, there's just some people in the field who think they are really better than their clients in the communities. And that's something that I would hope people can really like. This inner work is really important. And I'm not saying go to therapy. I'm saying do your healing work. Like, if we're really committed to like liberation and freedom, we got to look at ourselves. But so, we're at the place where we do want to maybe offer, Dr. Truesdale's like dropping gems. Like, they still feel that way. Absolutely. So
It
now we
wouldn't
would
be.
love,
Oh, go ahead. I was
no,
gonna
I
say
was gonna say,
it wouldn't be a stream if we weren't having a little bit of technical difficulties, but
I
please.
know. I mean, we accept the climate that we're in.
It's fine. It's
We're
Mercury's.
human. Yeah, it's.
Mercury and micro braids. It's fine.
Oh, I love the Mercury's in reggaeton. I just love that one. Mercury is totally in reggaeton. And my invitation at every Mercury retrograde is to just dance, move, So Mercury's in reggaeton, people. So now,
Okay.
we're at the place where we want to, maybe offer some practical tips for folks who are tuning in. Like maybe ways that they could incorporate like unlearning practices into their daily lives or even in their spiritual work. So, maybe you want to share one thing you do in your unlearning journey and then offer a tip to somebody, or you can just share a tip. But we love to hear, like what you would offer to somebody who's tuning in, who's like in the beginning of their journey, or maybe they're like a seasoned practitioner and they're finally ready to reclaim this sacred work that we do and unlearn together. So any tips?
Definitely. I mean, I seek out spaces where you're in community with other people who are also trying to unlearn. That's like my hot tip. I'm like always seeking out those spaces and like trying to create them and seek out like teachers and mentors who have also been on that journey and are continuing on it and are open about their journey. We're social workers, so really interview if you're like starting your private practice, for example, and you want supervision, really interview the people who are supervising you. What's their relationship to healing work like? What's their perspective on this lens you want to bring to your work? Seek out spaces. I feel like I had made notes on the tips and I forgot. Hang on one second. Did I already journaling? Da da da. Oh, okay. I would also say like one thing I had to get really honest with myself about in grad school and then after grad school was getting clear on what was I continuing to do or what were practices I was like embodying at my job that I was just doing because I felt like I had to go along with it. And those practices actually weren't that separate from like how I was showing up in certain relationships where I felt like I just had to show up this way because like this is what's expected of me. So if you want to just sit down and journal about those things, that's a great place to start with unlearning, because most likely those things that you're just going with the flow or showing up around because you feel like you have to and you can't change, those are definitely linked to like larger systems, and how you show up in your work and in the field. So journal about that and have friendships that you can have really honest conversations. But I would say that's my last one. Mm-hmm.
Those were amazing. Those were absolutely amazing. I greatly appreciate, just the intention around that. Um, with the seek spaces tip. That is definitely why Biani and I, started the podcast, um, to create a community, start the conversations related to these topics. I think that we are going to see more of a shift. Continue, whether I'll see, let me say that again. We're going to continue to see a shift, right, related to folks that are looking for support, but would really like support that is more aligned with their culture or their values, as opposed to like the aesthetic of things. um, so this piece about seeking spaces, I think is really important. We did not share how y'all got connected. I don't know if y'all want to talk about that. I might have put y'all on the spot a little bit about that. But again, I think it's just this continuation of this conversation about the need for spaces like this.
Yeah, I mean, I love to share how Nat and I connected, but before that, I love what you offered. And I also wanted to say, um, I mentioned inviting movement throughout your day for folks. I think a lot of unlearning in this field is really doing the body, mind, spirit connection again, like reclaiming that again, because a lot of our work can be so cerebral and heady and intellectual and overly analytical. So I'm often telling people, like, let's invite some movement, even if it's 5 minutes, like whether it's dancing, going on a walk, doing some type of body scan meditation, or some type of like connecting with the body inside of the body kind of thing. Um, I also mentioned morning pages, which is something I tell my supervisees a lot that I'm mentoring. Like, let's get in a practice of you really connecting to that part of yourself that we tend to like tuck away to survive the system. But like, get in touch with like all your secrets, all the things that you're, maybe not really like connecting with, but do that in some type of like journaling practice, whether it's once a week or once a day. And I'm going to big up our divination spread. We have a spread that we made. It is called, and I just want to make sure I do it. It's called Unlearn, Learn, Relearn. So for our tarot and divination babes, we have a 3-card spread that I think would be great for people to use, whether they're journaling or just asking themselves a question. You can do it pulling cards, but basically the questions are each it's unlearn, learn, relearn, 3-card spread. What must I unlearn from my education or training or in this moment? What can I learn now? What sacred lessons can I make space for? And then the last position is relearn. What sacred lessons am I called to learn again? It's on our IG page, and we'll make sure to link it. But I think that 3-card spread is really, it's actually our pillars.
Mm.
We are really committed to unlearn, learn, and relearn. And yeah, I found some people really enjoy it, just being in that practice, asking yourself real questions like, what did I learn that isn't really serving me? Or what, like you said, what is it that I'm doing that I do just automatically, but it's not really my thing, or I don't enjoy it. One of those things for me was like clothing. Sequoia really helped me with that, thinking about adornment. Like, am I wearing this because I was told that was professional, or am I wearing this because it feels good and authentic to who I am? Like, I have to ask myself that question, right? What does it mean to quote unquote be professional? And
Yeah.
how we have to unlearn a lot of that. Like, I remember when this is my second set of locks. I had locks during my internship and I was ready to release them.
Mhm.
That's what my work was around, releasing my first set of locks. And the way some of my supervisors treated me,
Mhm.
y'all, it's not even worth talking about. But I remember being like, yo, the next time I get my locks, I'm gonna show up free form as I am. Like, I don't care. And even that, right? Like, things that we internalize from these programs about the way we look and dress and wear our hair. Whether, like, I wear my hoops, I'm gonna wear my hoops to the day the ancestors call me. But I remember in my program, some field placements were very clear about what we wear,
Mhm.
and so just, that process of unlearning just from like that experience, like, how do you show up? What do you wear? So that's what I'll say. And then Sequoia, do you want to share a little bit of any tips you have? And then I will be happy to, or Nat can talk about how we met, and Nat can share a little bit about um, what they do in terms of their offerings or what's going on in their world.
Yeah, I would love to hear how you all met, because we have other folks that listen in, that are, might be interested in the group that, y'all met through. And then yeah, and then we can transition into main takeaways.
Mhm. Mhm.
Nat, do you want to? Okay, let me just say this.
Yeah.
Um, Nat is like, I found you on IG.
Mhm.
That's where I live. TikTok I love, but I just don't know how to use TikTok well. But you were one of the first people that actually was like spiritual therapist. Like, you used that term to define yourself, and you also have a group. Can you tell us about your group? That's how we met. I came across your group. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about your group.
Yeah. So it's called the Spiritual Therapist Group. Nothing fancy. And we meet once a month. Um and it's really just a space for mental health providers and students in mental health programs to come together and talk and share our work and feel a little less lonely. I'm sure you all have seen this as well. Our field is going through a huge shift, a tower card moment, if you will. And yeah, I think a lot more providers are tired of sort of compartmentalizing their identity or their relationship to spirituality within the field. And so, I mean, I created this space because I needed it, to be honest. And I also wanted a group to celebrate this work. I think this work is so incredibly sacred and special and transformative and like funny and weird and hard and dense and traumatic. And I wanted a place for all of those things to live because I wasn't seeing it out there. So we meet once a month between an hour and a half. It's pretty chill. We have themes. We've talked about like I think the one of the first months was like it runs in the family, so our family's relationship to religion and spirituality and how that shaped our journey. This month I'm calling it spirit stories, kind of like ghost stories. So we're talking about encounters we've had with like different spirits, and really destigmatizing the idea that it's like scary or evil. And actually it can be like funny and cool and healing. So yeah, I encourage folks, if you're interested, RSVP. You can do so on my Instagram, Sun Shadow Healing. But yeah, we would love to have you. And we have a lot of different people, like in all different
Mm-hmm.
areas of the field, which is exciting, and like all different areas of the world. Like someone came from Australia one time, like South Africa. So it's really cool to see how this work looks on a global scale.
I love that. Thank you so much. And that just reminded me, do you have any other offerings that you want to share, mention, anything coming up?
Yes. So okay, yeah, the group is once a month, and then I'm also um on the tail end, I'm putting together a zine of art and writing and stories and interviews from spiritual therapists, right? So, folks who are on this journey, and I just really want to hear, interpret it however you may. Like, yeah, what do you see as the future of magic and mental health care? How I keep playing with the title right now. It's like ancient futures and community care, so like, how do we see our work as being ancient? Like, it's not new, it's not like this work wasn't already happening. Like, our ancestors were doing this work, our family members were doing this work before therapy was a thing. So like, how are we kind of connecting all those things together? How are we seeing it as a continuous lineage, and where do we want to see it going? So if you want to contribute art or writing to the zine, you can do it, but reach out to me sooner rather than later. And again, you can reach out to me on Instagram or my website.
That sounds really cool. Please, either I'll follow up or please let us know, like, if you have a flyer or something, so we can repost it, like in our stories or something.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So let us know how we can support that. Did I forget anything, Biani, with those last questions? Got anything? Oh, can you say your IG handle or your website again one more time for us?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So Instagram at Sun Shadow Healing. And then website, it's the same, sunshadowhealing.com.
Okay,
Great.
cool. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Nat. So we're at
Yeah,
the main takeaways. What are your takeaways from today's episode, y'all? And for those who are tuning in, let us know in the comments. What are your main takeaways? Um,
definitely. I
so
can go
many.
first.
Yeah, please go.
Okay, okay. So my main takeaway from today's episode has really I have really appreciated this conversation about our framework, but then also the unlearning, learn and relearn divination spread, and how we have talked about, all of us have talked about different aspects of that, throughout our chat. We've specifically identified the unlearning piece. But I think in going back through it, you can absolutely hear the threads of learn and relearn. So I love that for us. And that's my takeaway. And for folks that are listening, definitely check out that divination spread and those questions.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, my takeaway is just that there's such a community of people like having these conversations and thoughts. And I guess I'm just thinking about friendship, like witnessing the relationship you two share, and how, I don't know, how powerful and transformative it can be in our unlearning process. Like, hopefully we feel our most authentic selves with our friends. And I'm thinking about my friends right now. So I guess like your friendship is really sticking out to me right now. That's one of my takeaways.
Don't make me cry. Actually, no, I want to. That's just really so sweet. I think Sequoia and I have been really intentional about growing this podcast and our friendship. And that just really feels sweet to hear. Just like, I don't know how that's landing on you, Sequoia, but that's just so sweet. Mm.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate that, and what we have just really been intentional about is, I, basically what you shared too, Nat. Like, we needed this space, we shared, like, we got connected through moderating a tarot and therapy group, Facebook group that ended up closing out. And then we were like, well, we still want to work together, figure out how we can work together, but then also get to know each other a little bit more, just around these topics. And so, I think that is just the message, clearly also being in Aquarius season, age of Aquarius, just wanting more community. That's what I'm trying to say. Wanting community, not seeing that authentic space, not wanting to be in spaces where, there is that mindset of I'm the expert, you know, and things like that. So thanks, Nat. And for me, I just hope we just continue to be able to again support what you have going on and the community.
Yes. Thank you all so much. This was really amazing.
Oh, it's great to have you. And thanks for those who are tuning in too.
Mm-hmm.
This unlearning is a process, but it was confirmation that professionalism is rooted in white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
Showing up as ourselves is freeing. Thank you, Crystal. Yes.
It really is.
I would say one of my main takeaways is like, I agree. The more I am in community with other folks who share aligned values and have a vision for like our freedom, yeah, the more I feel like I can be myself, and that feels so important. And we hope for those who are tuning in that you can see that unlearning is the key to unlocking your fullest potential as a professional, quote unquote professional, or as a practitioner. Like, you can be yourself, you can be you, and you can really build community. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes, there's space for you. The field needs you to be your most authentic self.
That sounds amazing. I am grateful as always for the both of you. Um, we're in that place of the podcast where we are winding down now. Saying thank you to Nat for being here with us today. As always, we want to keep this conversation going. Please share your thoughts or questions in the comment section. That is going to continue to be open. Biani and I do our best to get back to y'all in the comments as quickly as we can. As always, you know that y'all can connect with us on IG. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. We have a treat for y'all. It's not gonna be 2 weeks between now and the next time that you see us. You're actually gonna see us in a week. So we'll see y'all next week, May 1st, same time, same place, where we're gonna talk about intersectionality and spiritual bypassing. Um, Related to spiritual therapists and their practice. And we're just going to talk more about how practitioners are reflecting on the political aspects of spirituality. That's another panel discussion that I think is going to be amazing.
Mhm.
We've just been connecting with some amazing folks. Thank you to everybody in the chat. We see y'all. Continuing on in this episode, spiritual practitioners are going to discuss their experiences and perspectives to answer the question, why, how is the spiritual political? We're honored to welcome our guest panelists and fellow spiritual practitioners and social workers, Michelle and Erin, on this important conversation. So we'll see y'all right here, Reclaiming Soul Work podcast on YouTube, and then on our Spotify and all the other things that we stream on next week.
Thanks again for being in community with us and supporting a heart-centered podcast by two queer Black femme healers and spiritual social workers who explore the intersection of magic, spirituality, mental health, and everything in between. Like Sequoia said, we would love to stay connected and continue to build the spiritualpreneur and healing community. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Reclaiming Soul Work podcast. Once you subscribe, you can set a reminder for notifications when we release a new episode. You can also sign up at the landing page on our website to be notified of new episodes and offerings. Become a member of our Patreon. It's going to be incredible, y'all. If y'all want to be a part of this community, Patreon is where it's at. And then we have a free monthly newsletter, First Quarter Moon. Sign up for that. And yeah, we will see you next week.